Game 2 here tonight in Boston. The Celtics, can they take a commanding 2-0 lead? And even if they do, is there room for a couple of bets one way or the other where we can cash a few tickets? I think there is, although you never know because Bryan Power is with us here today. So we'll have to figure out, make sure he's on the right game here tonight. But BP, always a pleasure to see you. All sorts of very strange conversations happening just before we went on here. We'll fill you in on all of them later. Shout out to the chat room here. Always a pleasure to see you guys. Have first up. John, Divided Don't Hide It. Finley in the house. Always a pleasure to see you there as well, John. Despite, and I apologize again, it is BP with us here today. But BP, we were just talking about how you crushed it last night. Another winning play on I think it was the Dallas. Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't listening, but you did win the play, right? What was it exactly that you had last night?
First of all, I would like to thank all of my client support, and Joe, most importantly, I would always like to thank your support. We had Dallas first half team total over. That makes it 2-0 titles. That was less of a sweat than the play in game 1 of the series we're talking about today, Boston, Indiana, where I had Boston full game team total over, needed that last second Jaylen Brown 3 in regulation. It's now a 30-13 NBA run, Joe. Seeing it well, 70% going back to early April. And if you go back to last year's finals, almost a full calendar year, we're up 75 units in pro hoops.
Wow. All right, crushing it, man. Another one was a good day for the show. Those of you that tailed and hung out in yesterday with us, Steve Merrill and myself, tried telling you there might have been a good reason to bet not just Dallas in the points, but money line. We said with pretty certainty that we were pretty sure Dallas was going to win one of the first 2 games, and they did just that. But all-important game 2 coming up tomorrow. And an all-important game, too, for the Pacers here, who came, so close, BP. You know all about that. So close and just couldn't get there. But they have another opportunity here tonight. 9s is what I'm seeing now. This was 8.5 most of the day. I'm starting to see 9s. I am seeing 224s in the market now, so that seems to be coming the other way. So tell me what you thought of, first and foremost, after the overtime win there. Did you look ahead to this game and think you were going to land one way or the other, or what were you thinking we were going to get here for game 2 after watching Boston almost, I don't even want to say Boston screwing it up, because, they just, I don't think expected the kind of effort they got out of the Pacers. So I don't want to say they screwed it up. They were almost flat out beat, but they ended up getting it done, which is what experienced teams what did you think we were going to get for this game here tonight?
Well, Joe, I always find in the NBA playoffs, the trickiest handicaps are when the favorite cover or does not cover, but wins the game straight up, because then it's sort of a thin line. It's a tricky thing. It's not as obvious the kind of regression you're going to have for the next game, what might happen, where the improvements could come. You made a good point there that Boston, it seemed that they had everything in hand through 3 quarters. They really had their way offensively through 3 quarters. They had 94 points at the end of 36 minutes. And interestingly enough, they scored, after making me sweat that full game team total, they, of course, scored 16 points in overtime. So for 41 minutes of basketball, they scored 110 points. Things just got a little wonky in the fourth quarter for them. But I think no matter what bet you're looking to make tonight in game 2, Joe, whenever you and I are going to have these long form discussions, which I know you look forward so much to about these individual games, I always try to come up with a unifying theme to come back to for the bets. And I think when you look at game 2 tonight, you have to ask yourself, can Indiana continue to have success offensively, not just from behind the arc, but inside? They were really good close at the rim, which probably is going to continue because Boston doesn't have Porzingis. Now, if Indiana isn't as successful from 3 in this game, that doesn't necessarily disqualify them from covering the +9, because as we saw last night, the game you mentioned, Dallas did not shoot well from 3, but they had their way inside so much they still won the game outright. So if Indiana can continue its offensive success in both areas, yeah, they're in good shape. They can continue their success in one of the two areas, either inside or from three. They can hang with them. And of course, if things go sideways in both regards, they're probably screwed.
All right. I see that the chat room off and running. Kelsey in the house, bottle of Chardonnay and a long straw, apparently. John Divided, don't hide it, ready to go. Shout out to Instagram, by the way. Grind at all times. My man crushed it yesterday. He, along with the other day drinkers on IG, were very much in favor of the Dallas Mavericks last night there, and they certainly got it done. So kudos. Also, Chris, I believe, in shorts in the house. Russell Saylor here, already throwing out props. We're going to get to a few of these. Russell is letting us know that I think Miles Turner has an undisclosed ankle or knee problem. Might be ready to look to fade him tonight. Well, you're in luck if there is one person who lives with the Amish that is near there. It would be Bryan Power there. This happens to be your neck of the woods there, BP. Are you hearing anything through the cans there in Ohio land about this? Are you hearing anything?
Spoken like a true coastal elite, Joe. The entire Midwest is one area. Yes, Indiana's right in my backyard. Are you kidding me? Look, it's interesting because Miles Turner, that would be a significant loss. There you go. What a nice picture that is of me right there. But Miles Turner would be a significant loss or a significant injury if he's not at full strength for Indiana, Joe, because he's a guy that I expect to have a lot of success in this. He had a lot of success in game one, right? And this morning on the morning wager with Mark Zinno, as you know, we talked about Tyrese Haliburton's a guy that we didn't actually like to go over his scoring prop for Indiana because, I think he's a guy where there could be some negative variance because he's been so prolific from three the last two games. But it was also a situation where I see a lot of other guys for Indiana potentially having big games. Turner was one of them. Pascal Siakam is another guy who, because of Boston's sort of shaky rim protection, what's going on right now with Porzingis, I would see a big game from him. So Turner, that's a significant thing if he's limited in any way, because he's a guy I had circled to have a big game too.
Yes, John Divided, don't hide it, Finley. We will get the very famous BP and Adam Trigger Valentine's photo set up for you here momentarily. We will have that for you. I promise there. It's you'll get it. It's there somewhere, I think. What we do have though is an update on the, and I think it was Catch You Slipping, jumping in, asking us what the money splits are here today. Now, BP, compared to the WagerTalk live odds screen, I'll tell you what I'm seeing. I'm seeing all Pacer money. Early and often here. But I'm also seeing the line creep back up to 9 as opposed to 8.5. So I do think that the public is all over Indiana after that last game. I mean, that's for sure. Is that what you're seeing? I'm getting close to 75% of the spread tickets, 66% of the money. All in favor of Indiana. So Indiana would be a very, I would say, a public dog here tonight, BP. Are you seeing the same thing on the WagerTalk live odds page?
Yeah, it's pretty similar on WagerTalk. They have 56 and 61 for the splits there. I listened to Teddy's video that he did elsewhere on WagerTalk TV. And yeah, he kind of echoed the same sentiment that Indiana does very much look like a public dog. And hey, you look at it, right? They were a few seconds away from pulling the outright upset in game one.
Yep.
It's a lot of points. The public sees a lot of points in a playoff game. So I'm not surprised, to go back to the opening of the show when you asked kind of what you were thinking, what you were going to be thinking coming into game two. I'm not surprised that Indiana is a public dog because it does look like a lot of points. Now, I'll say that I kind of think that the odds makers have this one priced right this series. I do think the gap between these teams is substantial. Now, Indiana surprised me in the past. Obviously, I did not expect them to advance to the conference finals. But they've benefited. Give them all the credit in the world. They have benefited, though, from major injuries to both the Bucks and the Knicks. And I talked about Indiana. What can they do offensively in game two? Can they carry over the success from game one? We do need to talk about the defensive end as well, because no matter what, Indiana's not good at the defensive end. They give up over 120 points per game on the road. I mentioned that Boston had 94 through three quarters, scored 16 in overtime. They wound up with 117 in regulation, did the Celtics in game one, Joe. And the shooting was not out of this world. Boston only made 33% from three in game one. One thing I liked from when I broke open the box score and was trying to extrapolate some things, Boston got up 45 three-point attempts in that game. Now, obviously, that's a little skewed by the extra 5 minutes, but Indiana during the regular season, for as woeful as they are defensively, they were actually number one in the league, guys, in fewest three-point attempts allowed. The fact that Boston was able to get that kind of volume is a good sign. If Boston's hitting their threes, Indiana's up against it for sure, I would say. If I know we're talking player props, a plus money player prop that caught my eye about an hour ago, Al Horford, old man Al, over 2.5 made threes. He was missing a lot in game one, but the volume was there, Joe. If he's getting that same number of attempts, I think he attempted 12, if I'm not mistaken. 12 three-point attempts in game one. If he does that again, I think he can make three, right? That seems very doable for Al Horford to make at least 3 threes tonight. He was getting open looks.
The problem with Al Horford is, and shout out, by the way, A Life in Vegas is in the house. Also, Dan's favorite, Lord Farquaad, in the house there. Always a pleasure. Good to see you there, my man. Metro. I believe Metro, is it? Yes, I can't read it that far. But yes, Metro in the house over in YouTube Shorts. Big up to you as well. Here's the problem with Al Horford. He's 108 years old, and he played over 40 minutes in that game. Okay? He is literally 5 more minutes away from an AARP card and an oxygen tank. There is no way he's going to play that many minutes here again tonight and expect to have anything remaining in this series. I mean, I give him all the credit in the world. He was given a whole lot of wide open opportunities, to your point, BP, because Indiana's okay with him doing that. I don't even think Indiana expected him to be out on that court. But the problem that we're seeing here, too, with Missoula is, boy, that bench got real short for them, didn't it, in game one? Those starters all played 40-plus minutes in that game. Now, granted, they've only played a bunch of G League teams, and they should be healthy enough. But I did find it very interesting that he played as much as he did, because as that game went on, we started seeing a lot less of the bench players and a lot more of those starters. And I'm wondering, and that's the only thing, 21.5, I think, is what we had up there for our for the PRA for Al Horford. And if he gets less minutes here tonight, I don't think he comes even close to that, to be completely honest.
Well, again, I wouldn't necessarily go over the PRA. It's just the 3-point attempts, because he's been getting a lot. He had 13 attempts against the Cavs in the club. He's getting the attempts. And what if it was just a one-off aberration? I would say, whatever. And I agree with you. I mean, I called him old man Al. That was the first thing I said. But if he's going to be out there getting these open attempts, I think he can make 3, and it's plus 140. It's higher than plus 140 at like FanDuel right now. So I don't know. To me, that stuck out for a guy who's been getting so many attempts. You bring up the Boston starters minutes, Joe, and that makes me think back to Indiana's last series against the Knicks, right? Because that was such a big storyline with Tibbs, who's always known to run his starters to the ground. He had no choice because the Knicks were so banged up. Is that going to be an issue as well? Because one area that I think we would all agree that Indiana has an edge over Boston is depth. Indiana's a deep team. And if this series goes longer, that is something to keep an eye on, the Pacers' depth that, can be key, because they're not going to get as tired as maybe some of the Celtics players are, who are going to log, the Tatums, the Browns are going to be logging 40-plus minutes every night.
I just saw a big move, and the board lit up here to the over. It looks like the over money is starting. Did you see that as well? There is a big alert across the board right now. It looks like 225.5. So it was down to 224, but a whole lot of steam just came running in right now on the over here tonight in this Pacers and the Celtics game. And that doesn't necessarily shock me either, because here's my thing, BP. I don't know why everybody is so convinced that somehow Indiana's offense is going to disappear. When you look at how they played that game one, they shot 35% as a team from three-point range. Great. They could be good for 38% on any given night. The argument could be made, they too could be better from three. But what was most impressive is anything and everything in the half court, they were fantastic in. But you know what? They were the same exact way when they played them during the regular season.
Yes.
We're talking about one of the best offenses, most efficient offenses in the NBA this year. The idea of them dropping 60 points in a half, as if it's foreign, if that's going to, it was an anomaly, I think is absurd. Listen, Boston can still win this game and not slow down the Indiana Pacers offense. So I don't know what we're talking about. Why are we so convinced that Indiana's just, they're going to be lucky to get 47? Why? Why in the world should we think anything that we just saw in game one by Indiana's offense cannot be, with no Porzingis, mind you? Why can't that be replicated here tonight, BP?
Yeah, no, I mean, let's go back and just about what we talked about earlier. They're going to have success inside because Boston, without Porzingis, their rim protection's been lousy, and there's no reason to believe that Indiana can't be as successful at the rim in this game. I think the question is, with Indiana's offensive production, first of all, these are the two most efficient offenses in the league. One of the big reasons I took Boston team total over rather than lay the points in game one was because of the game script. Obviously, if Boston was going to cover the number, they were going to go over their team total. But I also envisioned a world, and this is what happened instead, where Indiana was just pushing them, right? I mean, both these teams were going. Yes, Indiana had their way inside, but so did Boston. Both teams were getting whatever they wanted offensively. So, I think that there's two things where Indiana's offensive production could slip. One is the threes. You mentioned, you're right. They only shot 37% in game one. That's not overwhelmingly great. So I don't think they're going to shoot something like 25%. But you do look at the Pacers on the road. This was a bit of a red flag, Joe. They played 8 road games so far this postseason. There have been 3 instances where they've been held under 100. So their bad offensive games have all been away from home, and they have not strung together 3 straight great road performances. And you look at what they've done recently, the historic shooting in game 7, where they were shooting 70% for most of the game. And then they were shooting, they shot 53% overall in game 1, which is very, very good. Can they keep that going for a third consecutive road game? I think that's where the questions are. I'm not saying that they can't, okay? Because like I've said multiple times, I think they're going to continue to have success on the inside here. It's just, on the road, that is where Indiana's bad offensive games have come throughout the playoffs.
Yes, but again, I read the quotes from Mazzulla, who is an interesting dude, to say the least. As the competition gets better, I'm worried, Celtics fans, that this is, if you really do need to make in-game adjustments or lineup changes, and I am not sure this is a guy that is, you better have all the talent in the world, because if anything goes hard left here, I don't think he is a guy that is going to outsmart anybody except for maybe himself. He swore that the reason that they gave up so many points, or that Indiana was basically Indiana. Indiana didn't do anything out of the ordinary. They did what they usually do. They're very efficient. Porzingis not being there in the middle is a bit of a problem. Al Horford having to play 40-plus minutes is a bit of a problem. But he said after the game that they're not making wholesale changes on defense. They think they can. They made a lot of mistakes. There was execution issues, he said, on defense. Well, that's great, except for the fact that they didn't make all of their points because of missed execution on your part, Boston. So if you're not going to actually adjust and make any defensive changes here in this game tonight, why in the hell am I thinking we're going to get anything different from Indiana other than what they just did in game one. If you're going to run with them, then guess what? We're going to get points, a lot of points. And I forget the side. To me, just focus on the totals in this game once again, BP, because Missoula is telling us nothing is changing here on the Boston defensive side of things. Everything they just did, they're going to do again, which is may look great on paper, but the reality is Boston can win this game, but Indiana can certainly score enough points here to make it interesting, if not fly over all of their totals in this game.
And there is an area, Joe, where Indiana can absolutely increase their production from game one, and that is the free throw line. Yep. I'm surprised. I haven't heard Rick Carlisle. I know the NBA strongly discourages its coaches from working the refs in the media like Phil Jackson used to do in the 90s. But Boston was plus 20 in attempts from the charity stripe in game one. You would have to imagine Rick Carlisle might be in the referee's ears and saying, come on, guys. Now, I'll say this, is you watch I know there was a lot of complaining about it on Twitter. It was mostly Tatum was better at initiating contact than Indiana was when they're trying. He has a way of drawing contact. So it was not a surprise to me that Boston was getting more attempts. Now, whenever you see 3-1 on attempts, that is pretty substantial. And either there's just something going on with the way the teams are playing, or you're going to see it even out in the next game. My guess is that probably evens out. Indiana only having 10 free throw attempts in game one is something that I would expect to increase tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you here. Still 8.5 I'm seeing on the board, but that 225.5 still lighting up. Might even be heading to 226 as far as the total goes. So I would imagine the total being bet up like this, as much as it is, as fast as it is this time during the day, I would imagine I'm probably not alone thinking the Pacers are going to get theirs here tonight. And it could. And I think it's important to understand the Celtics don't have to shut the Pacers down in order for them to clear and win by double digits tonight. I think we all on the same page with that, right? So the Celtics can still cover this game, and we can still get 110 points from Indiana in this game. And I think that's why the total is starting to creep up still once again after it was heading down low, is because when you look at some of these points numbers for some of these guys here, who's going to be the leading scorer tonight? How do you fade Tatum tonight? Can't. Tatum's going to get his as long as Porzingis is not there. The minutes are going to stay for him and Brown and for Holiday. I know there are some people think Holiday is going to come back to reality here from a point perspective, but again, I don't know that we're going to see a whole lot different tonight than what we saw in game one there, BP.
Whichever side you like tonight, bet them over the team total. For sure. I don't, whoever wins this game is absolutely eclipsing their team total. And to your point, Joe, Boston, if they go over their team, they can allow Indiana, to go over their team total, and they still can cover. I do think, but the way game one was played, up and down, both teams penetrating, getting what they wanted at the rims. I mean, both teams put up a lot of points per possession at the rim. I would concur that points, it's hard for me to see a world where certainly both teams struggle offensively. And, I did mention that Indiana has had, they've quote unquote saved their poor performances for the road offensively. But whichever side you like tonight is definitely going over its team total. There's no doubt about it, because you're not, if Indiana is to stay within the number or pull the outright upset, they're obviously going over, 108 here? I'm seeing 108.5. And Boston, if they cover the spread, they're going over 116.5, 117.5 for sure. Boston can still cover, even allowing Indiana to go over its team total, like you mentioned.
Yep. I think that's the way to approach this game, is obviously the totals are running. And by the way, I don't think there's any reason to have to run to the window and bet maybe Boston right away. I'm almost positive, BP, at this point in the game, you're going to get Boston at a much better number live once this game starts. I mean, unless you're looking at a middle and you think you're hoping for that because you think they're eventually going to win by margin, and you hope they blow them out early, and then you can come back in on Indiana at plus, some sort of astronomical number here. But I do think, especially early on, if we're not going to see wholesale changes defensively, I think they're still going to do their thing. I think they're past the point of intimidated, BP. Is that fair with Indiana? So you're going to be able to get yourself a hell of an opportunity in this series for a few middles, depending on how you play it pre-flop and what happens in these games. I have no doubt. Keep in mind, Boston, you could have got them in the fourth quarter at 1.5 minutes left. They were plus money.
Yeah. And to your point about not being intimidated, do we really think Boston's going to start this game out on another 12-0 run like we saw in game one? No. I don't. I mean, Indiana just looked a little shell-shocked for those first few minutes, and it looked like, okay, Boston is going to blow them out of the water, and then Indiana punched right back. So I would be surprised if we had a start like that again tonight. So yes, if you're a live bettor, at some point you are going to be able to get Boston, I'm sure, over the course of 48 minutes at a better number than what is currently being offered on the WagerTalk.com odds screen.
Yeah, I'm with you here. And I also think, I know there's a lot of folks. I know Ralph Michaels earlier today on Wager Talk Today, guys. If you didn't check that out, Teddy had some thoughts on this game as well. The link is in the description below. But he's all over the first quarter. He thinks Boston comes out extremely focused. And I know some of you guys in the chat, was it Titan CT? Big Daddy in the house, a life in Vegas. Good to see you guys. Tyler is in the house. Eric D is just in every chat room we have right now. Good to see you invading our IP space. Very nice there. But first quarter seems to be a popular bet right now with the Celtics because they're expecting early. And I think it was, 2.5, 3 BP? Some of you guys were asking about maybe quarter bets here. I took them in game. I took Boston in game in the third quarter because I thought for sure they were going to come out in the third quarter. Now that they had seen the pace, they had seen that they were going to come out and fly all over them. And boy, that just did not happen, did it? And so first quarter, maybe not a bad look at home with Boston. It's usually been, was it the first or second quarter during the year with the Celtics that they were always just absolutely destroyed teams? I think it was early, right? The first quarter?
Yeah, and, obviously it's been first halves. We talked about their success. They were the highest scoring team in the first half in the league. It's been interesting that there's been a couple times Boston's come out poorly in third quarters. I remember I had that third quarter bet against the Cavs where I thought they were going to be able to Celtics would be able to cut the Cavs' throat, and that didn't happen. So, I kind of do like, we may not look, we just talked about how we don't think it's going to be another 12-0 start for Boston.
Right.
But that doesn't disqualify them from covering 2.5 in the first quarter. I think they can do that. And of course, the other first quarter bet that's become really popular is Tatum over 7.5 points. For some reason, the odds makers just keep that number at 7.5. With Porzingis out of the lineup, Missoula's been playing Tatum the entire first quarter, every time. And I know it didn't hit in game one, but that's another early look. Tatum over 7.5 points in the first quarter. I believe it had hit every game since the Porzingis injury before the last one, if memory serves me correct.
Yes. And there's a lot of folks in the chat too. I think Tyler comes in, says Celtics first quarter sounds good. Also first half. And I think, what is the line on the first half? Has that moved much, BP? It was 5.5 earlier today. And I don't think it's moved. I think it's still, it was 5.5 in game one too. Was it not?
Yeah. You can find 5 pretty much. It's 5 pretty much everywhere, which is where it opened. So it's 5. I'm looking at the Wager Talk on screen right now. It's painted at 5 pretty much ever. There's a few 4.5s actually there. As for what it was in game number 1, let me just double check. That was 2 days ago.
I'm almost positive it was in the. I'm almost positive it was the.
It was 6. It closed 6. It opened 5.5 and went to 6. So here we're not seeing the Celtics money in the first half that we saw in game 1, which is interesting because they have been so great in the first half all season, particularly in Beantown.
Yep, we got some interesting props coming in here. Also, it looks like Tyler's a big fan of Jaylen Brown tonight. First quarter points has been a wagon in the playoffs. You mentioned Jason Tatum, and obviously the bulk of the minutes and the bulk of the points to me are still going to come from those two guys, although the argument can be made Holiday bailed him out in that game there for what he brought, not just defensively, which is what he brings all the time, but his ability to be able to score finally in these playoffs was a big help for the Celtics here. But Brown is not bad. What is his point prop? Dan, do we have his point prop? I think it was 28 and if I want to say 25 and a half. There it is. 25 and a half points for Jaylen Brown in the game, which, if we're being realistic, we've got a 225 and a half, 226 total here on two of the most efficient offenses in the NBA, which have been all year long. Brown getting 25 over 25 and a half, kind of hard to argue with there. Is it not, BP?
Yeah, you take a look at what he's done the last couple games. He barely went over with the extra 5 minutes at 26. He's been right around this, right over the last couple games. He had a kind of a dud. He wasn't needed as much in the closeout game against Cleveland. He only had 11 points there, but he had 27 and 28 in the 2 games before that. So, yeah, he's been right over that number now 3 of the last 4 games. And another interesting thing is, and this was, I think, everybody's talking point coming into this series, Boston needs him more. They could afford to coast in the first 2 rounds, and all due respect to Miami and Cleveland. Those 2 teams were banged up. They were limited offensively, certainly far more limited offensively than what Indiana brings to the table. We know. So for Boston, everything we've been talking about, continuing, going over the team total, it would make sense that their stars are getting there. Yesterday on the morning wager, we talked about that with Dallas. I mentioned I had the first half team total over with them yesterday, but we gave up Luka Doncic going over his point total, which he did thanks to the strong finish. So yeah, if you're expecting points for Boston, yeah, okay, the role players can contribute, but the 2 stars you would certainly expect to do their thing as well. And you look at Brown, he's now gone over 25 and a half in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 11 playoff games. So right around 50%. He also had one that was 25 too in the closeout game against Miami, where he shot well overall, but not from 3. Only made 1 from 3 in that game. He has yet to have a game. The 11 was the worst one he had. Other than that, he's had 17 or more in every game.
All right, can we get Obi Toppin up, please? Danny, if we could we get Mr. Let's see what we got here. All right, we've got Mr. Obi Toppin Finley in the house. Apparently, he's changed his name now there, Mr. John Divided Don't Hide It Finley. Obi Toppin Finley now, 8.5 points is what we are seeing. I love the over points here. I love Obi Toppin here simply because this is a good matchup for Obi Toppin. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes in this. Yes. I really do. I think he's going to see increased minutes against Boston because he's got the size. And I do think 8.5. I think it went so over the top because of John Finley that Obi Toppin changed his name. They lowered it in the market, and now we're ready to go and smash it back over the top. Are you in agreement with that there, BP?
Yeah, this is a guy who scored 15 points in game 1, and you talk about a potential increase in minutes. I concur. Why? He's bigger. McConnell was guarding bigger guys. Carlisle went small in game 1, and I thought that was a mistake. So Obi Toppin, when he was out there, he had a positive plus-minus rating. I would expect more minutes from him. Again, he had 15 points in game 1. I'm not saying he's going to necessarily duplicate that tonight, but with a point prop of 8.5, he doesn't need to duplicate it. He actually needs to get 60% of the way. So I think, yes, over 8.5 is a sound bet.
I love it, yes, because I think the market has crashed on him. By the way, shout out to Cheshire Cat in the house. AOD, still wondering why nobody's taking the Pistons in 5. I get it. Don't worry about it. It'll be here before you know it. Russell Saylor also looking at Siakam points here tonight. I saw his PRA Dan, do we have his Siakam? I believe it was reasonable, too, if I'm not mistaken. 21.5 for Siakam here tonight. And who's going to guard him exactly, BP? That's my question, because he hung out at the foul line and had pull-up jumper after pull-up jumper after pull-up jumper. You know, that's where Porzingis is missed.
Yes.
I don't think Al Horford or, at 40 years old, who's going to contest pass? I think he's going to continue to get that here tonight. So I don't have a problem looking at his over prop. And I believe Robert said he's also covered his assist number in 3 straight games. I don't know what the assist number is, but his PRA number was 31.5, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that ballpark there. And I don't have a problem looking at that either. I think if this game is going to be close, he's going to have a big part of it over here, because I just don't think they're going to change everything to try to guard Siakam at this point.
A couple things. Number one, don't mention the number 5 with the Detroit Pistons, Joe, because they keep having the worst record and keep getting the 5th overall pick. That is one of the most insane things that happens. But Pascal Siakam, I would actually look at him points plus rebounds over 28.5. He went for 24 and 12 in game 1. And you mentioned the lack of rim protection that the Celtics have. Do we really think there's going to be a decrease of 8 in his points plus rebounds? I don't, actually, tonight. So I would look at points plus rebounds over 28.5 for Siakam. That's another reason that I thought Haliburton under, which we again talked about on the morning wager, was a good look, because I think some of these other guys, because the Celtics are so deficient down low, I think Indiana is going to have more success down low than they do necessarily from behind the 3-point line. So Siakam over 28.5 points and rebounds is a good play.
Holy crap. Hold on. It is official. We're going to have to get some sort of bell here, or there it is. S. Warrior finally before 5 o'clock. Outstanding. S. Warrior showing up at 4:55. Outstanding stuff. My goodness. Somebody get this man a damn alarm clock, will you hear? We also have, you had Haliburton up there. I saw a bunch of people earlier today in a number of spots looking at fading his 3-point prop, right? Was it his 3-point prop? I think BP is what we're looking at. 19.5. The problem is he looks like he's getting healthier to me. Does he not? And he's also increased his amount of 3-point attempts. I mean, this was a guy that almost, I think during the season, about 50% of his shots, BP, were from 3-point range. Like he chucks everything up from 3. He didn't do that early on because I think obviously the hamstring and the injuries, but he's increased. What is he taking? 7, 8, 9 a game now? If he keeps that, what are the chances of him getting 3 threes here? I mean, it's at plus money at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of his production probably is, like, whether you like him over or under that point prop, is to come from the 3-point line. He averaged 9.5 3-point attempts per game in the Knicks series. He put up 14 himself in game 1. He was 6 of 14 from behind the arc. That was after going 6 of 12 from behind the arc in game 7 against the Knicks. Look, I understand where the idea of regression comes from.
Yes.
It's kind of like with PJ Washington for Dallas in the last series. He was so on fire. Everyone's like, well, he can't keep this up. The thing is, regression's baked into this number. He could still be not as productive from behind the 3-point line and go up over this number of 3.5 made threes. So that's why I kind of liked under the point prop as opposed to under 3-pointers made, because no matter how many points he gets, I kind of think that most of them are going to come from behind the 3-point line. You look at what he did in game 1 overall. I already mentioned the 6 of 14 from behind the arc. Well, he was 8 of 18 overall. So he only attempted 4 shots from inside the 3-point line. So he right now, and it was 12 of his 17 shots in game 7 against the Knicks came from behind the 3-point line, 8 of 12 in game 6, 4 of 9. So he's looking to make the threes is what he's looking to do. So I think if you're looking to fade Haliburton, under his point total is the way to go, not under 3-pointers made.
Wow, we've got a lot here to unpack in the chat room. Shout out to Grind It Out All Times, calling for, he says, S. Worry, don't worry, it's Jameson time. And you are ready to go because he is looking for a little Irish whiskey time here, which is about right here coming up in a couple of minutes. Some of us might have dabbled a little bit earlier in the day, but that's all right. We get the point. Grinded at times there. Also, Holiday over assists. Big money play coming in with Grinded at all times. Don't hate that either there. Lee brings up a very good point here, too. Pleasure to see you, Lee. Haliburton can hit 3.5 threes after a 6 threes made. He's done it in both series. He looking to fade it, but listen, the reality is he could still go over his 3-pop and under his points prop, which is a solid point, which is something to keep in mind. But the over, what is it? The over 2.5 threes, I think it is. It's a pretty good price. So, instead of trying to figure out whether or not he's going to be all about the assists tonight, if he gets his threes, you can still cash it out at a pretty good price without having to sweat out an over with 20 points in this game here. I don't hate that approach either.
Yeah, I think it's the way. And I know that we had a question about Holiday. I like Holiday over his point prop as well. I think the underlying theme is we kind of like everybody except Haliburton with the points, but I think there's a lot of overs with these player props that we like. I like Holiday to go over 13.5 points here. That's just it's just not a lot. He had 21 in game 1. Is he going to do that again tonight? No, but he only needs to get 50% of what he had in game 1 to go over this prop. He was 10 of 16 from the field, 4 of 8 from deep. So and again, like you mentioned, he was a big reason why they were able to win that game 1. Joe, now 28 was a season high, but again, correct. We don't need anywhere close to that for him to exceed this prop. As a matter of fact, against Indiana, he scored 14 or more the last 3 times these teams have played, averaging 16.3 overall in the season series. So again, you just look at the matchups, Boston, Indiana this year. Holiday over 13.5 looks like a good look to me.
I don't hate that either. Also, Rich C in shorts talking about 13.5, 14.5, and 16.5 points for Holiday. So he seems to be getting better as the series continues to move on here. I do think that he has got to play a big part. I don't know what it is, but also I would look, and I don't know, I don't think every book has it. Can you get Holiday steals, BP? Because he is always guarding Haliburton. It felt like he was on Haliburton all the time. So, and Haliburton sometimes, listen, they turned the damn thing over 21 times in the game here. And Holiday was responsible for a good number of that chaos there when it came to them trying to inbound the ball and do what they needed to do. So maybe Holiday over in steals is not a bad look either.
Yeah, and
he is their best defensive player. He is their best defensive player, period.
It is plus 150 on 0.5 steals. That is at DraftKings. It's plus over 1.5. You can get it plus 150 at DraftKings right now. It appears that Joe Ranieri has just bet that as we speak. But yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I can show you my phone right now. See, over 1.5 plus 150.
I'd be shocked if he don't get 2 steals here at that kind of price. That's not a bad look here. Who is the leading scorer here tonight, you think, when it's all said and done? Who's going to be leading? I know a lot of folks were on, I believe it was Luka last night to be the man, and he certainly was in the fourth quarter, although Kyrie carried him early in that one. But what do you think? Thank you, Catch You Slipping, by the way. Dan's been hard at work putting that graphic together. What do you think? Who's going to be the leading scorer here tonight in this game?
I'll go Jaylen Brown. You can get him better than 2-1 odds, which I think is pretty. If you're looking, it's not the best value, but it's going to probably be one of the top players. I would be shocked if it's not either Brown or Tatum. I just like that price on Brown. I would go with him as game 2 scoring leader at better than 2-1 odds. He was guarded mostly by Siakam, but Siakam it's going to be interesting who Siakam guards. Is it going to be more Tatum? Is it going to be more Brown as the series winds on. But I think
Yep.
Brown is a slightly better value in that regard.
We have one more. Couple of people now have, and Cheshire Cat, outstanding as always. Don't let them get to you in the chat room, girl. They are good to go. Russell's a good guy. James Murphy in the house saying this all sounds like free money. Nothing free, my friend,
No,
unfortunately.
don't say
Tatum
that.
30 plus from RJ in the house. I don't hate that, but I think if you think Brown's going to be the guy tonight, then Brown over his points prop is the guy to look at. Nembhard, do you have Nembhard in there for us? Because I know a couple of guys were looking at him and whether or not he was, or maybe we don't have him. But I believe it was a small enough number, and this is a guy that's been pretty important to him. And there are a bunch of guys that like him in the chat room here tonight. Do you have a number on him here, BP? I'm pretty sure. I have
his rebounds and his, I have his rebounds
and
plus assists is 7.5
and what do you got?
minus one over 7.5 minus 113. So if you think he can do the little things, yeah, I thought it did too. If you think he can do the little things, it might be worth it over. I mean, you look at what he's doing, he's averaging 3.3 rebounds per game. He had 7 assists in game 1. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. That might be worth. I think that might be the best look on him for game 2 over rebounds and assists.
Yes, I agree. I think he's going to be playing a pretty big role here. And by the way, Bill McDonald, Brown is the only one who can take it to the hoop here on a consistent basis. I'm kind of with you here. I'm thinking this is a Jaylen Brown kind of night. And a quick look at the line movement here. BP, I am seeing 226 has popped up. I'm starting to see 9. So we got a lot of Celtics money. Looks like to the over, and now the Celtics money coming in. But I'll tell you this right now, it ain't public money back in the Celtics because the numbers and the splits are all Indiana Pacers here. So, but don't forget, prior to tip, there was a big steam move towards Indiana in that in game 1 here. Are we going to get that, BP, again here, or are they going to let this continue to get bet up and then come back in and hammer Indiana and take the 9 points or 9.5? I'm wondering what we're going to get before tip-off here tonight.
I could see a little bit of Boston money coming in actually before tip. I think it'll be. I mean, it'll tell a story to see if this is. I mean, I think Boston is playable up to 10. To be honest with you, I think they could get it done. To that, I wouldn't play them any higher. By the way, I was looking at Nembhard. If you thought 7.5 was low, Joe, you can actually get over 6.5 rebounds and assists at DraftKings. Although that is a very reduced minus 145. I don't know if so. Maybe shop around. I think playing over 7.5 at reduced juice is the better bet there. But it'll be interesting to see where that late money lands. It's not the end all be all, but I actually think there could be some late money looming on the Celtics, to be honest with you.
All right, so let's get to it because we covered a whole lot. And by the way, Kelsey talking about steam being great for your skin. Hell of a point, Kelsey. This is why we look forward to you hanging out in the chat there with your Chardonnay and your 7-Eleven Big Gulp straw. Always a pleasure to see you, Kelsey. Honestly, it's just glad that you're there. Let's talk about a best bet here tonight because I think we've covered just about all the angles of the game, BP. But give us one that you like a little bit more than the rest and tell everyone what you got rolling over at WagerTalk.com here tonight.
I would bet Celtics team total over. I think Indiana stinks defensively. I think they're not going to get better defensively anytime soon. Boston had their way offensively in game 1. Again, 94 points through 3 quarters, 16 overtime. It's 110 they had in just 41 minutes of action. 117 points in regulation with just 33% 3-point shooting. Boston's going to get theirs tonight, Joe. And if you go to my page right now, WagerTalk.com, I've got a 2-for-1 deal. I have not just my the game 2 winner for tonight, but I've got the game 2 winner for tomorrow night as well. The game 2 winner for tomorrow night, Minnesota and Dallas, I've rated as a 4% play. I don't give out a lot of 4 and 5% plays, but tomorrow is a 4% play. Again, 30-13 run in the NBA, already 2-0 in the conference finals. You can get both Game 2 winners from me for just $29 on my page, wt.buzz/BP.
Oh, you good? You done? Okay, good stuff.
It's funny.
Sorry. No idea.
That's how I picture you in production during the morning wager. That's why I talked long earlier this week. I just wanted to make sure you don't run out and get like an egg McMuffin or something when you do that show.
I didn't know what that was. Let me ask you another. Actually, I'm a little scared to ask you, but it was a great, maybe the best comment in the chat room here today. Is the best bet your love for Adam Trigger? We just want to know. Is that? There it is. There it is.
I'll tell you what.
Outstanding. Look at that.
Look at that. I'll tell you what. The production team at WagerTalk.com knows no about it. I haven't talked to Trig in a while, but I will be seeing him on First Pitch, I understand, 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. So, Joe, you are not done with me yet this week.
No.
Don't get too excited by that picture, buddy.
Good stuff. Yeah, that's good stuff. There is nothing better than BP's love.
Oh, here we go. We have sound effects on the program.
Better.
I'll tell you what, I didn't know we could do those things. I'm going to put in a lot more requests now for what we can do.
I absolutely can't
believe we have sound effects here on the show. Unbelievable.
Outstanding. Only for you here, my man. Big Daddy, Warrior in the house. Lee, having a good time here. Kelsey, a life in Vegas. We certainly appreciate it. Lou 72, shout out to you, my man. Always a pleasure seeing you. I was combing my hair a little bit, listening to BP dribble on there, but he did a great job of laying it out for you here tonight. Let me also say this. I am just not sold. Sorry. That somehow this massive regression is coming for the Pacers here tonight. I do think Boston wins this game, but that's not going to stop the Pacers from going over their team total in the first half. It's only 55.5, BP, if I'm correct here. Theirs closed 53.5 in the first game, and they didn't score for the first 3 minutes of the game. So I don't know what we're expecting as far as defense from Boston, but everything that I've seen leads me to believe nothing's going to change. They're just going to outscore Indiana, and they're going to do that at some particular point in this game, but not before Indiana gets there. So Indiana has promised they are not going to stop running. They're not going to stop pushing the pace. And the way Boston looked flat-footed and wasn't able to get back in transition, well, we're going to find out. But that is going to be a part of this game I can't wait to see here. Where is this massive offensive regression coming from, and when is it going to take place? I'm willing to bet it don't happen tonight. So we'll have to see how it works out.
It is 55.5 in the first half. Yes, 55.5. And I will not stop running either, Joe. I make that promise to you. I'm going to keep running always to the microphone when you ask, which is more than the people know. Yes.
It was 53.5 in last game. And again, they didn't score for the first 3 minutes. So what? Can't get 56 points here? I mean, I believe Boston's first half, 60.5, 61 BP, somewhere along.
Yes. Okay, yes, that's what it is. It depends on the book. It's 60, 60.5, 61. It's actually varied. But both first half team totals have taken money to the over, obviously. So, Boston. But 61 sounds like a lot, but that was Boston averaged more than 61 points per game in the first half of the season.
That's correct. Well, they're both number 1 and number 2 first half scoring teams here in the NBA all year long. I think that's what this series is. Forget defense. This is all going to be about showcasing offense with these two teams throughout this series, and I don't think the market has adjusted quite yet to where it needs to be here. But we'll have to play the game and see what's going on there. Shout out to Russell in the house there, Lou 72. James Murphy, turn of points, by the way. I do believe, once again, we were told, and you haven't seen anything, BP, about Turner being hurt. There was an injury. Some guys are worried that maybe, obviously, please know whether or not he's playing beforehand, because if Miles Turner is limited or not playing, that obviously changes a few things here. But still not seeing it in the market as far as that goes there. Still seeing 8.5 and 9s in the marketplace. I would imagine no Miles Turner might push that market one way or the other, but keep an eye out there and see what it is before tip-off here. All right, James Murphy, good to go. Over 16.5 points. If he's playing, I'm backing him on there. Kelsey, get yourself a new straw. We'll see you again tomorrow there. Ears up, K9. Shooters are going to shoot, and they are going to shoot a lot in this series. So get ready. It should be very not you, BP. No. No. Do not make any athletic movements. Good God, we don't want to scare anybody here. Life in Vegas, also grinded at all times. You guys are the best. Boston ATS, Boston over team total, and Holiday over assist props for grinded at all times. The Day Drinker on Instagram. Cheers. They're grinded at all times. It is Jameson time. S. Warrior, thanks for remembering us before 5 o'clock here tonight. We will be back again tomorrow for a very special Friday edition because Game 2 of Dallas and Minnesota, a lot to uncover in that series. We'll do it again tomorrow. Until then, guys, cash those tickets tonight. Enjoy it. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good luck.